What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Southeastern 14, another edition of Bets and Ball Games with Edwards and Greeson. And we've got ourselves a sponsor. It is Bet Online. The last of the major pro sports leagues are off and rolling, and college basketball is ready to go as well. Bet Online remains your top spot for all your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, and NHL are in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. All the hoops betting action, along with every sport available at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to the BetOnline today and remember to use our promo code, all caps, BLEAV. That's BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, let's get started with our games as we bring in Jay Greeson from Chattanooga. What's going on, man?
Not much, brother. Not much. And I will say this, consistently Bet Online offers as good a price as anyone out there, both in terms of handle and in terms of competitive odds. So we always tell everybody to shop. Your shopping spot may need to start with Bet Online.
And I know one thing, that they are one of the quicker books to getting lines, especially with my UFC fights. I feel like they've always got the odd when a fight gets announced, their odds I feel like are there first. And before we end the show, make sure that I give my two favorite picks in UFC 295. All right, let's get going. Alabama at Kentucky, noon, ESPN. Our good friends at Bet Online have Alabama at 11 with a total of 47. And Jay and I both like the favorite. Go ahead.
Well, I like the favorite for a couple of reasons. I think Alabama is now – they got that feel of being Alabama again. And that second half against LSU was on both sides of the ball was pretty doggone impressive. Now, you run the quarterback as much as they ran Milroe against LSU, you're putting him in harm's way, but you can't calculate that as a gambler. And Kentucky's got no answer for that. None, in fact. And offensively, the really good offensive teams have put a pretty good number on the Wildcats this year, which is a little surprising for a Stoops team. But Georgia blew them out. Tennessee covered, but they put, close to 35 on them. Alabama's going to go up there, and Stoops and Saban are the two longest tenured coaches in the SEC. And this is their fourth meeting. And in their previous three, it has been a old school Andy Griffith show, walk to the woodshed beatdown.
You ready for those numbers?
11 is a mighty low number here. I'd play it up to 17.
Yeah, those three meetings between Stoops and Sabes, 63-6, 34-6, and 48-7. Jay and I are on the same page. I like Bama, undefeated, 3 road games, 2-1. ATS, since the loss to Texas, they've won 7 in a row, 5 by at least 14 points. And when Kentucky stepped up in class this year, they lose 51-13 at Georgia, 38-21 at home to Mizzou, despite a 14-point lead, and 33-27 to Tennessee. The only Power 5 teams Kentucky has beaten: Mississippi State with with Will Rogers out, at Vandy, and Florida in Lexington. We both like Bama, minus 11. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on Vandy at South Carolina, but BetOnline has it at 13.5 and 58. I'll just throw out a few tidbits. South Carolina's beaten Vandy 14 times in a row. Vandy this year on the road, 0-4, both straight up and ATS. And there's 7 games, or they've lost 8 in a row. There's 7, one of them was to UNLV. 7 of them, all 7 that they have lost, all 7 Power 5 teams they've played this year, they have lost, and they've lost by 16 or more. And look, Xavier Legette was healthy last week. I cashed with Jacksonville State. You had that too, didn't you?
I did. That was my best play of the week.
Yeah, and they had a great chance to win outright. Down 3, down in the red zone.
We talked about taking them at the money line at plus 500.
Yeah, South Carolina got like a 90-yard pick six there, like 2 minutes left. Jack State also had a turnover around midfield late in the first half, and like a play or two later, South Carolina scored. The only point I was making there is Leggett is back. He had a monster game, and so I lean South Carolina here. I'm not sure I'll play it in my contest. I'll be on South Carolina where I have to play that game.
Okay, well, I'm 1,000% on South Carolina. I am. Okay. Maybe my best SEC game of the week, to be quite honest, for two reasons. One, Vandy is within contact of running the table ATS. They're 0 for whatever. What are they? If they're 2-8, they're 0-10 against the number this year.
No, they got the spread cover against Georgia. Remember?
Ooh.
37-20 as a 32.5-point dog.
Okay, you're right.
That's the only one. That's the only one.
Okay, you're right. You're right. They covered. Okay, they covered that one. So they're 1-9 against the number. And then conversely, here, South Carolina's 3-6. South Carolina has all week been talking about we got to have this one to stay in bowl contention. Shane Beamer cannot afford not only for this one to be a loss, he can't afford for this one to be close. He needs to drop the hammer here. I think this is and you taught me this a dozen or so years ago when we first started talking. I'd look real hard at the line of South Carolina early. And because you're at home, you need to punch them in the face. You're going to throw the ball a lot. And
you're talking about a first half or first quarter bet? Is that what you're saying?
First half for what? And this is a real, I mean, God bless the Vandy kids. They're way smarter than me. But this is a real chance for them to pack the bags, man. I mean, they've lost 8 in a row. You talked about they hadn't beaten anybody close to anybody who has a Spencer Rattler at quarterback. This is, I mean, for God's sakes, man, Auburn put 31 on them in Nashville. This is good. This could be close to 50 for South Carolina. And Beamer's got to want his fan base to feel good. Has to.
Yeah, the Bet Online's got the first half number, South Carolina -7.5, but at half juice -105. And so on deck for South Carolina, all winnable. Kentucky and Clemson, they could make a run to a bowl game.
But you got to win this one, and you got to start feeling good about yourself within the program.
100%. 100%. Okay, 3:30 CBS. Vols are at Mizzou, and our good friends at Bet Online have, well, I have the first half lines, which is Pick'em and 28.5. But let me get back to the game lines. All right, here we go. And this looks like Bet Online has the Vols -2, total of 58.5. So both teams are 7-2 straight up, 6-3 ATS. The over is 6-3 overall. Mizzou over is 5-3-1 overall for the Vols. The Vols have won 4 in a row in this rivalry, straight up and ATS. They've won the last two, 66-24. The last trip to Columbia, 62-24. And then the two prior to that, 35-12 and 24-20. I had Mizzou as a short favorite 2 years ago, and it was like 28-0, like that. And it was one of the worst bets I ever made. I think both teams are playing good. Do you consider the look ahead for Tennessee to Georgia? But they have to win to still control their destiny to make a potential win over Georgia even be relevant. So you can't look ahead, can you? What are your thoughts?
No, you can't look ahead. And I think the way Missouri went to Athens and fought, and to be fair, last week we talked about how I went 2-0 in our disagreements. you liked Missouri. I like Georgia. Missouri was in that game to the end and covered. So you edged in that one.
2-1 Greeson, or do we have any other disagreements? I don't think we had any others.
I don't know. They'll pop into my head whenever we get to it. If you're Tennessee, you've got to take Missouri seriously because you're praying you can play Georgia that close. And what you said is right. The dominoes start falling because if you lose this one, then Georgia really doesn't matter. The only play I see this, and we've talked about this the last couple of weeks on bets and ball games here on Southeastern 14. If you look at games and you really have to make a play because that's the game you're going to watch and you're a casual bettor and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to make a bet at the 3:30 CBS game. What do you have to say, Fat Face Greeson or really smart-looking Brian Edwards? Fat Face Greeson says the only play I make here is the over. Only play Fat Face Greeson makes is going over this because and I'll ask you this as a longtime bettor and a longtime handicapper, I would not take Missouri +2. I'm taking Missouri and taking the plus odds, and whatever Bet Online has, it's probably like +130 to win outright. And so, because I could see that, I see every outcome here possible. Close game one side or the other, blowout one side or the other. And with the home team, if Tennessee's laying 2, what is Missouri on the money line?
Only +105.
Ooh, so, well, that's a little lower than I thought, but
yeah,
it tells me that they expect this to be a coin flip game too.
Well, I think your initial thoughts were right. I think it's an over or pass. So Tennessee had 62 combined last week, 60 combined against Kentucky, 61 combined against South Carolina, 59 combined against UTSA, 62 combined to Virginia. I left out a few because those didn't quite get there, but Mizzou, 59 against Kentucky, 88 against LSU, 59 against Vandy, 61 against Memphis, 57, not quite there against K-State. So I think it's over.
And they were driving. Missouri was driving to go over in Athens. And the Cook kid threw maybe his worst pass of the year, with a possible exception of the pick 6 against LSU.
Yeah, but that one, it was just desperation mode. But yes, you're right. One thing I haven't pointed out, Luther Burden's questionable. I mean, I think he's probably going to be okay. Will probably be some reports out here in the next hour or so as we're recording here early Thursday afternoon on whether he practiced today. All right, so over, if anything, is that the consensus from us?
That's the consensus. And you got to think, man, Drinkowitz is going to do everything in his power to get Burton on the field because they've got all their true hurdles in the rear view. And they get to 10-2 and a whole lot of chips fall. They could be in a New Year's 6 game. That could be Missouri in the Cotton Bowl. I mean, there's a whole lot still on the line for Drinkowitz. And we get right to this point. We're in that second Saturday in November talk, and the motivation in the locker room is something I try to really put my best guess on teams that have packed it up and teams that are still looking on, okay, how high can we go? What is the ceiling? Can we get, instead of going to Memphis or Birmingham, can we get to a Florida Bowl? Because you know as well as I do, these coaching staffs are preaching that.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And just to be clear, I have not played anything on Mizzou, Tennessee, and if I don't know about Burden, I won't be playing the over. Just wanted to make that clear to our audience. If there's no Luther Burden, there'll be no play for me. But again, we're early Thursday. We'll know a lot more in the next hour or two, probably, certainly in the next 48. All right, onward. Ole Miss at Georgia. Bet Online has UGA minus 10.5 with a total of 58. And what a chafe ass push Ole Miss -3 was last week. Although it could have been a chafe ass loss, I'll take the chafe ass push first. But man, that 10-point swing with the block field goal was huge. And that turned into a really good game in the second half.
Can you imagine the tension in the handshake between Jimbo and Lane? I mean, can you just, I mean, that honestly is like, all right, your high school sweetheart who you were engaged to, and everybody went off to college, and then next thing you know, you break up, and she cheats on you, and you cheat on her, and at the 20-year reunion, y'all walk up, and you each got spouses, and everybody gets to the middle of the table, and you say, hey, how are you? And the only thing you're thinking is, go bleep yourself, will you? You just go shut your pie hole and go bleep yourself. And then you walk off and you go, well, that was pleasant. That was really pleasant.
What do you think old Kiff told Dumbo? Hey,
man. Oh, Kiff didn't have to say nothing. Jimbo came out and went, that was a hard-fought game. And I'm certain Kiffin gave this smile.
Right. Right. Hey, I like what I've heard out of Kiffin this week. He's like, this is going to be fun.
Too.
We nobody giving us a chance. I think they're going to hang in and make this a fun game. But it could be a 7-point game late and Georgia score and cover. So if I had gunned in my head, I had to play it, I would play Ole Miss. I have not played anything yet. I kind of wanted to watch the number. I was hoping maybe we get some movement up, north of 11, which I kind of consider a key number. But
we got to think about this too now. Nobody's ruled Brock Bowers out yet.
Oh yes, and I'm so glad you brought that up because he's got I mean he's been practicing for 2 weeks now,
and he's been running and he's out there.
Yeah,
and if Bobo and that offense is putting in a whole bunch of Brock Bowers stuff. There have been few games in the 6+ weeks or so we're doing bets and ball games for Southeastern 14. I've got zero read on this game. Zero. I got no feel. This game could be Georgia at home. They could stomp a mud hole like Kentucky. They did in Kentucky, but they could also stomp a mud hole in them and it'd be 31-0. Or, as you said, Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss played Alabama 24-10, or Ole Miss could be right there at the end till a shootout. None of my metrics match on this game. None. Because you're 100% right. I love what Kiffin has said from the very beginning of we've got nothing to lose. He's been preaching that to his team the whole time through. But don't you know that Kirby has been doing the same thing about Ohio State is still number one. You guys, what can you do? You guys have only won 26 in a row.
Yeah, the world's against you. Yeah,
everybody hates you, Georgia.
Nobody respects you.
Nobody respects you.
I remember the national title celebration last year. One of them was like, "We shot the world, baby. Shocked
the world. You started the year preseason number one. You went undefeated, and you shocked the world by winning the national championship.
Double-digit favorite tonight, bro.
Yeah.
Shocked the world. Nobody believed in us.
Yeah, shocked the world, and we squeaked one out in overtime, 63-7.
And I'm not scolding the kid. I'm sure Kirby buries that in their heads.
He heard that since Columbus Day.
Yes.
We got to shock the world. We got to pull this thing off.
All right. So, I wrote down.
I'm a hard pass. I'm a hard pass, Ole Miss, Georgia.
Yeah, I'm a pass, but if I had to pick it, I'd pick Ole Miss. I'll tell you this: if Georgia, let's say, is got a 14-6 lead, Ole Miss has had two good drives, but they got field goals, and and Georgia's got 2 good drives. They got touchdowns, and it's mid-second quarter, and I can get Ole Miss live at catching more than 14, I'd probably think about that. But anyhow,
Conversely, though, in your live betting, I'll offer this stat analysis on the other end. Ole Miss has had trouble protecting the quarterback on the road. They've played 3 SEC road games and given up, I think, 15 sacks, including 5 or more against Alabama. So if that crowd's getting into it, especially at night in Athens, and the pass rush is getting to Jackson Dart, that changes a whole lot of the stuff that Lane Kiffin wants to do. I mean, we saw how bad Alabama got flummoxed at Texas A&M because of the noise. If Georgia's getting into it and you see that pressure early, because you're right, if Ole Miss starts quick and they're confident, the sphincter tightens for everybody in the city of Athens. But the other part of that early on, if you see those guys coming off the end and Jackson Dart's throwing a whole lot of balls to the sidelines, keep eyes on these things in terms of in-game betting, because they can make a difference, because those trends, they land in your lap and they normally don't slump.
And if it's a situation like the Auburn-Georgia game, Ole Miss gets out to a lead. Y'all had the lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Ole Miss, Auburn and South Carolina had the lead early.
Yeah, yes. And I hammered Georgia at halftime down 11 to South Carolina. Yeah, so if Ole Miss has a early lead and you can get Georgia like at -4 or less, that would be a good live look as well. All right, I have nothing on Mississippi State A&M. A&M is 18.5, total of 43 at Bet Online. And apparently Will Rogers is maybe practicing, maybe he's limited. He said apparently there's some quote going around that he guarantees he'll be back by the Egg Bowl. But I mean, Mike Wright is struggling.
Yes, badly.
Yeah, badly. And man, it's not looking great for Zach Arnett. I forget what his contract was, but I mean, I said all preseason, he does not need to go away from the air raid offense. I know Leach isn't around to call the plays, but you don't want to be drifting too far from a system Will Rogers had mastered. Well, he did. Not going well. You add anything on that one, or you want to just care? Oh, and my brother-in-law's an Aggie. He seems to think that Jimbo's not going to get fired. Where do you think on that?
Well, even with the billions that Texas A&M has in reserve, I mean, their foundation money is like top 3 in the country that we know of. I mean, private schools and Ivy Leagues, you can't FOIA that information, so we don't know. Texas is number 1. For some reason, I read that Michigan was 2, but and I thought A&M was 3, but it's all oil money. So, but that's a crap ton of money, and I really almost cussed for the first time on the Bets and Ball Games podcast. That's a crap ton of money to pay a dude to do nothing. I mean, goodness gravy. As far as this game, I can't recall 2 teams I trust less.
Right.
I mean, because you and I have talked openly, and they covered against Bama, but I don't trust Texas A&M. I don't trust Texas A&M in anything. I mean, any regard, offense, defense, coaching staff. I mean, they got a bunch of good players, but this is one of those that the only way I see to play this, even with Mike White struggles, the only way, and again, I'm not recommending this. I've got a lot of picks, and you can find them at Times Free Press. You can find them at the 5 and 10. You can find them in my afternoon email of Jay's plays that you can sign up at timesfreepress.com. But the only play, if you feel like you have to play this game, Texas A&M shouldn't be laying 18.5 to anybody.
Right. Right. I will point out, I think Max Johnson's pretty banged up.
Yeah.
He took some vicious hits last week. So, yeah, let's move on from this one because we do have a good one. Oh my goodness, my Gators are starving for victory. Jaden Daniels cleared the way I read it and translated it, he cleared enough protocol to practice yesterday. I also translated it like he hasn't been fully cleared yet, but it seems like for having a concussion Saturday, it seems like there's a lot of optimism. And on that note, this total's been 63 and a half all week. Bet Online now has it at 64 and a half. LSU at 13 and a half. Our listeners, if you've been listening more than once, you know we're all about the over. And I mean, I was still going to be all about it, even if it was with Nussmeier. Okay. LSU's had 13 straight overs, 16-1 the last 17. Florida's had 5 straight overs. Their last 3 have been combined scores of 75, 63, and 80. Graham Mertz has a 17-2 TDINT ratio, and he's been a lot better than I thought. And he's got 2 really good receivers in Pearsall and Eugene Wilson. And I think Florida's going to score a lot of points, but I think LSU's going to score more points. And I think the over's the way to go. And look, if Jaden is completely cleared, I'm all about team totals and all that jazz too for LSU, whether it be first half or the game. And I'd have to go to Bet Online and see what their team totals are. But we don't know yet. But look, Nussmeier, I know they didn't score when Daniels left the game last week. He threw some good balls. That 4th down hit Neighbors right in the hands. It wasn't like he played poorly, in my opinion.
No, all right. A quick tangent before we get back to this game. We've got to figure out what targeting is because the hit Jaden Daniels took was complete and total bullcrap. And I mean, I don't know. We talk all the time and on a whole lot of national spectrums about what is a catch, but dear Lord, man, that was vicious. There was actually 2 targetings on that one hit. But as we get back to this game, I trust Nussmeier. I mean, I trust him way more than I trust Niedermeyer from Animal House. I mean, that guy was a sadist. I mean, he ran the ROTC unit, and I mean, he was all over Flounder and Pinto. And I actually think he may have had a love affair with his horse, but that's a whole different conversation. Here is something I think that is really important because you talked about Graham Mertz, and he has been better, but he's been a lot better than you realize. Not many people know this, but since week 5, LSU and Florida are 2 of the top 6 teams in the country in points per opportunity. And that is a combination of possession and possession in plus field percentage in the analytic rail. So you're talking about 2 defenses that have not always been super consistent. And with LSU, you're talking about a defense that's been terrible. And you're talking about 2 offenses that are comfortable with themselves. If Jaden Daniels is on this field, I'm comfortable going with this. I know you said it. Bet Online got it up to 64 and a half. I'm comfortable with this number getting close to 70. This game is going to be a shootout.
I concur. And, let's don't forget Florida's got, 2 pretty good running backs and
Right.
Montreal Johnson. And we got an LSU defense, number 104 in run defense, 99 in total defense, 91 in scoring D. And let's remember they bageled Army a few weeks ago, and so these stats would be
that skews everything.
I know.
And they put like a 63-7 on Grambling.
Oh, 80-7, I think it was. Yeah. So yeah, if we took those games out and just the other games, I mean, they're like probably in the 115, 120 range of every defensive category, I would think. So yeah. And oh gosh, I feel like there was a Florida injury. But it's not that great for the over. They are getting two of their defensive starters that were out last week. Tyreek Sapp and Cam Jackson are back. But look, if Jaden Daniels is playing, nobody's stopping the LSU offense. All right, so that wraps up all the SEC games. But I know we both have a lot of other bets that we would like to share, and I know we agree on this. I'm on over 73.5 for USC and Oregon. The over's hitting 7 straight for USC to improve to 9-1 overall. USC's defense has given up 52, 49, 34, 48, 41, and 41 again in their last 6 games. And USC's number 2 in the nation in scoring, 45.5 points per game, and they're 124 in scoring D. And Oregon replaced with LSU only scoring 18 or 28 last week. Oregon replaced them as the top scoring team in the country. They averaged 47.4. And I'm not against, or I actually am also on Oregon's team total over 44.5. And their team total in the first half over anywhere from 21.5 to 23.5.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I do know through text messages, whatever your roller coaster was last Saturday, you made a mint on Washington at almost every turn against this USC defense. So it is. And here's the other thing, too. I know the number's pretty big. I think you got to like the Ducks as well, laying 14.5, or depending on what Bet Online may have it at. And that number is going to grow. To use the Spurrier phrase, there are a lot of teams that are looking for style points this week. Because one of the other games, and of course I'm on USC over. I'm going to be on LSU over and USC over all year because they've already made me enough money that I can cover even if the last 3 weeks are 7-3 shootouts.
Let me just give you, I hate to interrupt you, but for the first half, Oregon is favored by 8.5, and the total is 38.5 for both teams.
Well, I like the first half over and the Oregon first half number a hell of a lot, because what did USC do? They got in a huge hole with Cal and had to turn that into a second half 50-49 type of game. And so, no, I love that. And then you start talking about, and if we're going to transition, I love everything Oregon related. I think the over is the play. And then you start talking about style points. And I know you hate them, but the Seminoles are going to stomp a mud hole in Miami. That number, you can find that number 13.5 to 14.5. I don't know what Bet Online has it at, but that's two teams that over the last 6 weeks have been top 35 in dropbacks and passing attempts. And Florida State has a huge advantage at quarterback and a huge advantage with the pass rush. And those two things don't play well.
But Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson did not play last week. And I'm not sure. I mean, I suspect.
Yeah, I heard Keon Coleman's coming back.
I suspect that he is. I suspect he didn't play last week because he wanted to be back for this. So.
And I'm certain all of those Florida State players, free shoes you, criminals, whatever you want to call them, because I know you're a Florida Gator fan, they watched the Tuesday night special. And everybody talked about how it was a lackluster effort against Pitt in a 24-7 win. And Now you get Miami in a game that's going to at least have a couple of name programs. If it's under 2 touchdowns, yes, please.
So, not Bet Online is at 14.5 and 51. And it looks like most books are now at 14.5. There are a very few exceptions. So the money is starting to come in on FSU. Maybe that's based on a report in the last hour or two that Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson were maybe full speed at practice. We don't really know, but I'll be a hard pass on, and I call them, instead of free shoes you, I call them F stick you. Moving on.
Okay. We are
Moving.
not looking to appeal to the greater Tallahassee market in our podcast, apparently.
Clearly not. All right. I like the Kansas Jayhawks, who, let's see what Bet Online has them. I'm hoping 3.5, and you can buy it at 3, but I'm okay if it's -4. And I didn't see it on my first look. And so anyway, if it's 4 or fewer, I like Kansas. Kansas 5-0 straight up, 4-1 against the spread at home this year. They've won by margins of 31, 11, 11, 29, and 5. And Texas Tech 1-3, both straight up and against the spread in their 4 road games. And KU has revenge motivation here. And how about Lance Leipold? Just Jalen Daniels, the star quarterback, missing more than half the season. Just 7-2 at KU. Pretty good job.
All right. Let's I'm gonna trust your judgment there. You're a smart dude. Who would you vote for? National Coach of the Year. Lance Leipold, Dan Lanning at Oregon, or Jeff Brom at Louisville? And I'll lead that into I love Louisville tonight. And I know I may look like a fool because the podcast may not launch until after that game's decided. But Louisville at home is a menace, and Virginia's about to quit. So unless I am 1,000% wrong, but what Jeff Brom and Louisville are 8-1.
Yes, and there are hypothetical lines for ACC, Pac-12, and SEC championship games, and let's play that guessing game with you, unless you've seen them. So FSU Louisville.
FSU Louisville.
Where's that game? Charlotte.
Yeah. 12.5.
FSU's 10. Alabama, Georgia.
4.5.
Correct. It was 6 initially, then it moved to 5.5, and then by last night it was 4.5, and then Oregon Washington rematch in Las Vegas.
Oregon -1.
Oregon -6.5.
Holy good gravy. I thought Washington would get at least a little more credit. I mean, they beat them head-to-head.
Yeah.
Hey, dear Lord, Bo Nix is going to go to Oregon and win a bleeping Heisman.
And he might win a natty too.
Yes. Hey, he might have that famous film of being in the stands with his dad when Cam Newton beat Oregon for a natty, and then go to Oregon and win a natty.
Oh, wow. Didn't even think about that. Did not even think about that. That might have been the biggest bet I've ever made in my life on Auburn. And I think I got an early line, and what they win by?
They won 22-19.
Yeah, and I think I had it like 2 or 2.5 early, then some more at 3, and then in the last 2 weeks before the game, I think it moved up to like 5 or 6, if I'm remembering correctly. But I had it at the right numbers and got it barely. That was a good night. I'm sure it's a better night for you.
I watched it by myself. Had a wrestling match on whether I was going to go out there because it was a distance away.
Phoenix, right? Phoenix.
Yeah, and there was a blizzard across the south, and my daughter had just been born, so we couldn't go.
Oh.
And when I bought this when I graduated Auburn, I bought back then. This would have been 1996. I bought a $250 bottle of bourbon, and I had not opened it until 2010. And when Wes Byram's kick went through and the game was over,
you enjoyed.
Let's just say it was not a 2-finger pour of a $250 bottle of bourbon.
Nice. All right, we're running a little low on time. I want to squeeze a couple more in. Not my favorite pick of the week by any means, but I'm doing Boston College +2. They're in a 5-game winning streak. Whereas,
I'm with you on Boston College. I trust Boston College.
Yeah, Vatek is 0-4 straight up, 1-3 ATS on the road. The only spread cover, they still lost by 22 at FSU. They lost by 7 at Marshall, by 19 at Rutgers, by 31 at Louisville. BC, nothing fantastic, but they've won 5 in a row. Why are they home dogs? And I will also go with Houston, -2.5 to Cincinnati. The Bearcats have lost 7 in a row. Excuse me, going 1-6 ATS. Houston 3-2 straight up, 4-1 ATS at home, and that will do.
If I'm going to offer one or two more that somebody could look at, Navy is playing UAB in a game where the Navy over/under is at 55. Navy's played one game this year against any opponent where the total has gone over 55. Now, UABs can score, but Navy is not about stopping you in scoring. They slow the game down to a pace that I don't know how you get to 55, even if you completely dominate Navy. Here's the other thing about playing the under on the military academies. When a powerhouse, with the exception of LSU, blows somebody out, they don't run it up. You know why? Because they respect those sons of bitches for going out there and wearing uniform and protecting our freedom to gamble on Saturdays during college football.
Although LSU didn't.
No, they didn't. They go.
They got to start over.
Points. Jaden Daniels wins the Heisman.
They painted the end zone for him though, but they got that late touchdown for the over. I loved it. All right.
Tell us your UFC picks.
Okay. Tom Aspinall to beat Pavlovich, -115 odds in the main event. MSG NYC Saturday night, UFC 295. The co-main, give me Yuri Prohaska. I got him like +120 a few weeks ago, but he's still like +105 to +110. And he is going up against Alex Pereira. And so those are my two that I like there. And then in the NBA, the Wizards and the Pacers games are going over every night. And we've got the Pacers tonight playing Milwaukee. It was another high-scoring team. And tell them about Jay's plays while I look up BetOnline's line for this NBA or total for this NBA.
Jay's plays is my afternoon email. Comes in at 5 o'clock in your inbox. You can sign up at timesfreepress.com. I offer multiple picks. Try to always make certain one of the picks is a game on TV. I had about a 2-week stretch that was dreadful.
Snapped out of it this week. I saw that.
Since then, we've embraced. I am not jinxing anything going on. We've embraced the Fight Club mantra of rule 1 of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. And so we're just going to ride the wave. And you know what? Next week we may have to work in a little SEC basketball. I've had a little success this week.
I saw we shared the over. We both had over Auburn, Baylor, and I had
Auburn,
Oregon.
Baylor, Kentucky on Monday night was an easy cover of like a high teen line, and they win by 40. Last night, Wednesday night, Mississippi State was a 3.5 point favorite. They blew Arizona State out.
Without several key players.
And the SEC is going to be deep this year. Yes, you're going to have laydowns like Vandy losing to Presbyterian, which is inexplicable. But you're also going to have a whole lot of these games where you feel like they may be motivated. The SEC's got some dudes this year now. No kidding.
Yeah, and the Gators have Virginia tomorrow night in Charlotte.
The Gators are going to be not only a tournament team, they'll be a top 4 or 5 seed.
I hope so. And the the total for the Pacers in Milwaukee tonight at BetOnline is 243. I like it over, and until further notice, I like every over for the Wizards and the Pacers in the NBA. I'll probably be looking at a lot of Auburn overs. And what else we got?
Just always make certain you check the best numbers, and BetOnline's as good as there is out there, friends.
All righty. Yep. Thanks to our new sponsor, BetOnline. And if you enjoy the show, please do us a favor. Please spread the word to your friends of how to listen, etc. And best of luck to everybody with their picks this weekend. Have fun. We got football. We got hoops. Good stuff. Bets and ball games with Edwards and Greeson. Another edition is in the books, and we are over and out.